Alright, welcome back to animation class. Last week we were doing how to melt a face, basically, which was a fun and strange and challenging exercise. I didn't really get around to adding much to it, but a few ideas of like I think I'm gonna just like keep adding to it. Maybe I can make working on it in little bits and pieces throughout the weeks part of like my stream pre-roll or something, because this is not exactly a priority project. It's just like a little fun side thing. So I'm not too sure completely about how I handled that loop of the hair piece, but the rest of the face working pretty good. What I've got to do left on this is I've got to do what I'm going to do with the eyes. I'm probably going to have them sink inside the head or something, or roll back or melt out or whatever. And I'm gonna have like I'm gonna make the masking layers for the parts of the face that are peeling off the skin and leaving behind like the bone. And I need to do like this side of the face and some of the stuff over here peeling. I think the way that the hair currently falls could act as a way to mask part of the face that's melting or something, but I'll see. I'm gonna have to do my own once I like separate the stuff into layers of flesh and decide where the dividing line is for where the flesh is peeling. Then I'm gonna have to make those decisions. But anyway, I'm curious if anyone had a chance to work on homework for this. I did see some people posting some from last week, but if you want critique on this homework or any kind of animation that you would like to get critique on, please post it in the Discord classroom chat right now. The subject this evening, like we're gonna like touch on this. However long we dwell on this will be determined like if anyone posts anything from last week. But there's two main things I'm going to be focused on today, aside from starting off with this. One of them is last week we did a lot of stuff like this during our figure drawing for animators class, where there's another one I have in here too. I actually may do a demo of it, or this, but we did a lot of we started with a pose that we were referencing, and then we tried to invent poses to like create a new action out of it. Like on this one right here, I tried to imagine like what was happening preceding what happened in the like reference that we had. Here's a drawer here's like a sketch of the reference. There's another good example somewhere in here too. Oh yeah, this one. So this one right here, there's an actual image sequence right here that you can use for your animation references. There's a whole lot of image sequences that I've picked up on for drawing reference in our figure drawing for animation class. What I actually want to start doing, like in conjunction with my figure drawing for animators class, is creating our animation reference there that we then take during animation classes. The chance to turn into an actual like piece of animation. Like there's enough information here for me to kind of like, there's like one or two more poses I'd probably add here for like the follow through down or whatever, and probably some poses of the bag sort of swinging around or whatever. But I mean like, and I might add like another pose or two of him coming in from the side of the frame. But this is like enough information for me to work with to create an animation, basically. I might do a demo out of this tonight, but I want to like do an overview of all the stuff that we're going to be concerning ourselves with in future classes. There. Yeah, here's some other examples of stuff we were doing in warm-ups last week. Hold on to this. So I remember Could use it for fodder, possibly for a demo later. But yeah, so let's see, I'm going to save that, and I'm going to open this little puppy. So this is one of the two things I was working on before class. This is from a demo from last week, as I just showed you. I hope this is the right file. I think it is. Yeah. So as you can see, like, I actually had like some thought process in mind from my thumbnail of like how I wanted to do this, because like I can kind of, because I'm an experienced animator, I can kind of visualize how it's going to go a little bit, and that gives me at least a starting point to work with, because I can sort of sense like how stuff would be spaced out to give me like the result I want. But once you're actually animating, then you have like a little bit of freedom to play usually and experiment. Like I didn't really like make this as like intricately. This is like almost kind of like a first pass post test almost, because there's lots of stuff that isn't quite worked out, like the perspective on where this guy's standing isn't worked out too well. There's like lots of stuff that you would want to tie down and so on. I'm okay with this guy being distorted, because that's the kind of just silly sort of thing that this is. So this is, I'm going to accept that this is not like natural perspective, but I might want to like at least like get something good out of this dude here. And I can think of a few ways to do that, and I might get into that later. But like what you're seeing here is actually not far off from what the homework will be for this week. The homework this week is, I want people to, well, first off, use some like some kind of pose reference as your starting point, like some of the stuff that you're seeing on screen right now. I want you to like take a pose from that, or maybe even like an image sequence or something, and then start inventing poses to create a sequence of motion. And then I want you to use like something like this, that's like stick figures or like simple shapes and stuff. Nothing really complicated, because I want you to keep it rough, so you don't waste time cleaning stuff up before you're getting the motion working. So I want you to do like basically like have fun basically making like kind of stick figure animations if you want. They can be stick figures, they can be like crude different things. They could be volume. You can add just a little bit of volume to them, like I did on this guy and stuff. But they should be really rough, and it should be mainly about how the stuff moves. They can be about this crude. If you're a better draftsman than me, you feel free to draw these better. But don't like spend a huge amount of time like making a meticulously good drawings on these. It's all about how it moves and like the timing and so on. But I want you to have freedom to play with it and not really worry yourself too much about like sticking to principles of animation or whatever. I want you to just play with it and like try to make something that feels pretty good to you. We will concern ourselves with principles of animation this week. Next week. This week I want you guys like playing with observation and trying to play intuitively with the act of animating. Like I do not want you to get like overly concerned with like rules and principles of animation too early. I want you to play with the impulse of enjoying the act of just animating. You can use like tools of drawing like I'm using here. I'm using like a loose sort of perspective grid. I'm using some of my figure drawing knowledge here and there on this. So like you can use stuff to like enhance it for yourself. But I just want you guys to have fun making some kind of scene this next week. Make more than one. Like just experiment and have fun with it. But I want to see like stuff I can give critique to and show you, and like I'm going to show you examples of like how to apply the principles we're going to be going over next week in animation. Because next week we are going to become very intimately, we're going to start our first class session becoming very intimately familiar with, let me see here. We're going to be spending next week becoming intimately familiar with this guy, Richard Williams, who is behind the Animator Survival Kit, who will be the main source of our of like the subject matter we're going to be going over the next, I want to say, 12 weeks or so. We'll be progressively iterating on what we learn. If you miss a class, don't worry, it'll be recorded online. But what we're going to do is we're going to basically like move through the book together. I want all of you to acquire a copy, however you can, of the Animator Survival Kit, which is his main book. Even better if you can acquire the DVDs, which are quite expensive. There's also an ebook, I think, on like iBooks or something that includes like animated versions of the content from this, so you can actually see how the stuff moves. That's why I think if you can get a hold of the DVDs, it'd be great. This is the book you want, Animator Survival Kit. Pick that up however you can. Start like if you get a hold of, that's part of my homework this week. If you're gonna participate in this class series that's going on for this next week, get a hold of this book. We'll also, let's see here. There's some other books I can recommend. So start making a little mini bibliography of these. Actually, there's several of them I already showed up here. So so Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, right here. Illusion of Life. Cartoon Animation by Preston Blair. Timing for Animation by Tom Saito. Actually, it's not by him, but it was edited by him. Harold Whitaker is the name of the guy, but Tom Saito is a more modern animator. Put that together. Character Animation Crash Course by Eric Goldberg. So these other optional books, we will also touch on these, but the main one we're going to be focusing on is Animator Survival Kit. Oh, this guy over here. This book right here is also recommended as well, Acting for Animators by Ed Hooks, but we're not going to be too concerned with acting, at least not at this phase, maybe later on down. But we're going to be mainly concerning ourselves with the mechanics of animation. Just for reference, Animator's Crash Course is really a really nice book. Has a lot of snappy, nice drawings in it and stuff. Animator Survival Kit tends to like be less flashy and more like technical, but Character Animation Crash Course tends to like Eric Goldberg likes to put a lot of personality into his drawings. So this is definitely good to look at, and worthwhile in fact to do copy studies of, and trying to capture some of the personality of how he draws this stuff. But yeah, so those are the main books right here. Conveniently, they came up when I did a search for Illusion of Life. But our book that we're going to be focusing on will be this Animator Survival Kit. Oh yeah. See if we can get Richard Williams GIF. See if there's any Richard Williams animated GIFs in here. Oh, here's one. So that's actually some Richard Williams animation that he did not that long ago before he passed away, I believe, because I think that was done digitally. Let's see. Yeah, there's one of the horse animations from Anime Survival Kit. Yeah, Richard Williams is known for like doing a lot of crazy, like intricately detailed animation that like to show you a video of, but like look into his body of work. He was like he was the lead animator on, or the animation director on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There's this magnum opus film of his called Thief and the Cobbler that has a lot of really wild, crazy, intricate animation in it. Lots of commercial work over the years and stuff. But to really kind of take in... Well, actually, let's look at Sakuga Buro. Because I know there's Richard Williams stuff here. Yeah. Some of the really impressive Thief and the Cobbler stuff needs to be like kind of really taken in. You have to understand like he made this stuff like before CG. And it was all like all hand drawn using rules of perspective. Let me see if I can find some stuff here. And that's really neat, but I'm trying to find like the really crazy shit with perspective that he did. Thief and the Cobbler. There's a bunch of Thief and the Cobbler stuff. But there's like a lot of crazy shit in the film with like moving cameras, moving through perspective scene, like fully drawn out perspective scenes, intricate machinery that like today would be handled with CGI that was like meticulous to do like the full perspective of and shit. So you can find one of the famous moving camera shots real quick. Not yet, not yet. Here we go. Here's one of them. So this is like, stuff like this was all completely like hand-drawn. Using like a crazy amount of knowledge of like perspective and shit. And that's not even the most elaborate perspective shot that this film has. This is actually one of my favorite bits of character animation from the film right here. This little old woman who the thief tries to steal from her, and she's like kind of like shaking constantly and stuff. But she's got like these burly arms and stuff. And she doesn't really stop shaking even when she's like beating him. Not completely in. Yeah. Yeah, see, she's like still shaking even though she's like kicking his butt. Which I always thought was a funny touch. Yeah, that's lovely. Look at this transition right here. Check this out. Oof. Yeah, like they do use some tricks. Like they've really like simplified the design, so like the actual perspective they have to keep track of is just like a white background there and stuff. But look at that. They're even doing like a kind of a parallax effect on the floor, as if it's like the floor is a 3D plane there, which is really cool. It's a repeating pattern, so then all they have to do is repeat it. But there's a lot of stuff that they don't cheat in the film, which is really cool. But anyway, I just wanted to share that stuff to show like just how like what a crazy machine Richard Williams in his prime was, and that's who we're mainly going to be learning from over the next several weeks. This guy, he also made this, by the way. That's the cover of the Animator Survival Kit, animated. But yeah. So so what I want to get into now is I want to get you guys started on using animation software a little bit to make stuff like this. So let me write down real quick what software you're probably gonna look for. So there's a lot of different software. I'm probably not going to mention all of them here, but I'll try to get like the free ones real quick. So there's OpenTunes. That one's free. OpenTunes is like a cell-based animation cell-based thing. It's actually not too bad as far as like hand-drawn animation software goes. Blender which I want to get into a lot more recently. So you're probably going to see me using Blender a bit more for future lessons and stuff. I may actually use it starting next week for the basic animation stuff we're doing. I don't know what Fire Alpaca is. Let's take a look at it. But yeah, 2D template. Yes, Blender has a 2D animation template, and not only that, but you can also animate 2D drawings in a 3D space in that program. But you can also use it just for regular 2D animation. Blender is rapidly becoming a kind of an all-in-one software package. You could even do sound and video editing in it. It's nuts. So let's see here. OpenTunes, Blender, Krita. Krita is a really surprisingly good quality piece of software. There's a bunch of like pre-plugins and stuff you can add to it, and there's like a couple of YouTubers that have done some really good stuff on how to use it for like really surprisingly high-end, kind of like Sakuga, Japanese feature quality animation and stuff. So like Krita is a good one to look at for free animation software. Let me see if I can think of any others. Those are the three main free ones that I can think of. So Adobe, oh, gasp. Adobe has Adobe Animate, aka Flash, Photoshop, which is also often used for animation, and After Effects. So Adobe Animate is more kind of hand-drawn and rig-based. It's both hand-drawn and rig-based. Photoshop, you do more hand-drawn animation, and After Effects is more rig-based. Now the thing about Adobe is buy a prepaid license. So you get so instead of subscribing to Adobe, I strongly recommend you buy a prepaid license for like a year. And yes, those stack, by the way. That means if you buy more than one and stack them, then you can stack them for a year. They are legit keys that are usually sold in bulk and like flipped by key resellers. I might be able to recommend a few sites after the class that are pretty good for that. But if you do go Adobe, I do not recommend doing their paid subscription thing. I recommend getting a hold of a key from a reputable key flipper and getting basically a prepaid license. Like you can get it for like $60 to $100 for a full year for full access to everything for everything Adobe. Which I did, and I'm currently on right now. And surprisingly, I haven't used it very much, but I'm going to be in the near future because I have a lot of stuff I need to go through with that. Adobe 20 is a $20 a month for students. That's still too pricey, to be honest. I would say that you should just try to like for like $60 to $100 or so. It's much more worth it to just buy a prepaid license. They're legit keys too, but so it's completely legal to get a hold of those. It's just like it's one of those things that you kind of have to know about in order to do. So like most people just buy subscriptions instead. For rig, what does rig mean? Well, I mean, like, you know what hand-drawn animation is, where you draw the individual drawings and stuff. Rig is more like, it's kind of like, you know, have you seen like 3D models where they have like kind of bone structure in them in order to move the 3D model around? Rigs for 2D animation kind of work the same way. Some rigs are kind of hybrid rigs in that you can like use parts of, you can use like parts of the rig, and then you kind of have to draw in the rest when you do unusual poses and stuff. Rick and Morty uses that. There's actually a lot of like Sakuga style shows that use that sort of thing too. Rise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles uses rigs for a lot of like their reuse shots where like not any crazy amount of posing is happening. The Tangled series is almost completely rig-based. There's very little actual drawing that goes in the Tangled series. That was actually one of the innovations that both Disney and Harmony were trying to push. Lion Guard, also from Disney TV, uses completely rig-based animation. They wanted to see if they could like pull off doing rig-based stuff. An example of a hybrid show is the short Hair Love that I worked on last year, and that won a Oscar actually for. Hopefully I don't get copyright blanked for the film that I worked on in here. Oh, there we go. There's some of my drawings in there, those hands there. But this started out as like rough animation originally. Like Hair Love started off as rough animation. I'm not going to play this because I don't want to get copyright blanked. Hair Love started off as rough animation, drawn in pencil mostly, and then like we had to take the rough animation and turn it into like, and use the rigs in conjunction with our own drawing for like special posing on the arms and other things like that. And yeah, and basically that's a good example of a particularly high-end version of like the that's like high-end, almost like feature quality use of puppet rig hybrid stuff, basically. I would say it's like somewhere on the border between like TV and feature quality in terms of what it was. But it was pretty darn good. It was probably the most advanced puppet rigs I've worked on in anything I've worked on. They actually had like a little controller that you could use to pose the head out in different head positions, and then use that as a starting point to create a head turn or whatever. Let's see here, notes. All right, so I'm sure that I'm leaving out, like, there's a few other free pieces of animation software in here, so apologies for that. But let's move on. So I'm mainly concentrating on 2D animation, but you can feel free to use stuff like Maya or whatever. But I'm mainly going to be listing like 2D animation software. So there's Harmony. So the thing about Harmony is, if you can afford it, I would strongly suggest buying a full permanent license instead of subscribing, because in the long run it will cost you way less money. And having an all-in-one package to work with is really handy. You can negotiate actually with Harmony reps if you ever get in contact with them to get discounts on buying full licenses. But Harmony is rig and hand drawn. Steep learning curve. So Harmony has a very steep learning curve. I compare it to Harmony has a very, very steep learning curve. I compare it to Maya. It's often compared to Maya in terms of like being an all-in-one piece of software, except for 2D instead of 3D. Although there is 3D stuff you can do in Harmony now, like mainly for backgrounds and like scenery props and other things. But Harmony, Harmony is an all-in-one piece of software, and that you can do your hand-drawn animation, you can do compositing, rigging, a little bit of sound editing. You can basically like, if you have Harmony, you don't have to necessarily even touch any other piece of software. You can even do your concept art in Harmony, and actually a lot of Disney TV productions have been doing exactly that. The only caveat is they might use Storyboard Pro, and Storyboard Pro can also be used for animation as well. It's a little bit clunky for it, but it works for animation as well. And it's in the same family as Harmony for Toon Boom. It's also much more intuitive to use. But yeah, Storyboard Pro is pretty good, surprisingly good for animation, and a lot of board artists actually kind of almost animate their boards these days. So, so that's not a bad thing to have if you're going to be a story artist, and if you also want to work in animation, it might be a good idea to invest in Storyboard Pro. I do recommend having a permanent license over. If you can afford it, over a monthly subscription, because owning a piece of software means a lot more, especially in this day and age with Adobe going full subscription, for example. But anyway, let's see here. There's another so there are. I'm gonna name at least two more pieces of software which I could recommend. There's more beyond what I'm listing here. Clip Studio. No, I'm not gonna list that one just yet. But that is the software that I'm using right now. So let's see. There's TV Paint. So TV Paint, if you just want to do hand-drawn animation, TV Paint is the best way to go. It's very intuitive and easy to use. It's also expensive though for what it does, but it's an industry standard if you're doing like 2D hand-drawn feature animation. But yeah, I mean, like, you can get you can do just as good work if you're in like feature quality animation in Harmony. Like most of Claws, the film Claws was the Netflix film Claws. Well, here, let me show you. So most of the animation in Claws was done in Harmony. I mean, they did do pencil animation too, but the color and compositing is a lot more complicated. It involves like using AI and some other things, but yeah, and a lot of other pieces of software. Like I think that looks like that might be Maya in there, but actually I don't know what that is, but yeah, a lot of Claws was animated in Harmony. But TV Paint is amazing and easy to use. It's an industry standard of a lot of animated features and stuff. Let's see, there's two more pieces of software. One is Clip Studio EX, which is what I have right here. Often goes. So Clip Studio EX, which is the software I'm using right now, is actually used in a lot of anime productions. Unfortunately, I don't really know how to set it up to be intuitive for animation. There are like specific ways to set it up that anime productions use that make it really, really intuitive and easy to use for animation. But but unfortunately, all the resources I've been able to find for that so far are in Japanese. So I fortunately am in contact with a bunch of people from a group of like animators that have often worked for Japanese production companies. So so I want to learn more about that. The main reason is like I really like feel the most intuitive with drawing with the brushes in Clip Studio right now. So I think I'd get the best results if I got more if I like got more into using Clip Studio EX. The reason why EX instead of Pro is the EX is actually the bigger version than Pro. Pro is like the basic version. EX is the version that you want if you're an animator. Because like the tools for animation are limited in the Pro version versus the EX version. So yeah, let me see. Did anyone else suggest any? Did anyone else suggest any free animation software that I didn't mention for animators? Please mention it in Twitch chat or in Discord chat. I'm gonna sneeze, I think. Thought I was gonna sneeze. Flip it Clip. I don't know anything about that one. But I might be able to, if people can like introduce me to some of those, I might take a look at it. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the watermark stuff. You're better off just using like OpenTunes or something that wouldn't have any. Let's see, for iPad stuff, there's two main ones that I know of so far, which is of course Procreate has like very limited animation tools, but if you're like doing like, you can do a surprising amount with them. Like I've seen some pretty elaborate stuff people have made with it, but it's not my #1 choice because like the way that it works is not really that conducive to animation. Or iPad. But let's see here. The two main ones I recommend is Procreate and Cell Animation. I think it's Cell Animation. Yeah, Cell Animation. Yeah, Cell Animation has timeline. Cell Animation is the closest thing to it. Cell Animation is like a really crude. It's like a really crude version of OpenTunes. Well, not really. Cell Animation is like a non-free OpenTunes, basically for iPad, I would say. And it has like a timeline, onion, scan. So I have an iPad myself, and I'm going to be actually making more use of the Cell Animation thing to do small exercises throughout the week. That's my other challenge to all of you. Feel free to make it like 1 or 2 break days during the week if you want. But one of my challenges for all of you regarding homework this week is I want all of you working at least a little bit on some kind of animation every day. And don't worry about, especially not at this stage, don't worry about getting super self-conscious about like making really good animation or whatever. Like, try to pick a subject, I would say, for an exercise to do. Like if you get a hold of the Animator Survival Kit early on, try out some of the stuff in it. or take a piece of Sakuga animation, or take a piece of live action and stuff, live action footage or something, and do a little study from it. Or just if we want to make like a character making a change of facial expression or something like that, or some silly little thing. Just work a little bit every day this week, and I'm going to be holding myself to this too. Every day this week, except maybe if you want to take a break day, Saturday or Sunday, on the weekends. Try to animate a little bit on something every day. At least a little bit. Some days you want to go for more. You want to go and like really animate way more. But at least for this week, I just want to get people like, if you want to be an animator, you gotta practice the craft. You gotta keep up with the craft. And I've been a lazy procrastinator myself for the last few months, as I've been like mainly concentrating on figure drawing stuff, but that can only take me so far when I'm not applying it to what the reason why I'm drawing figure drawing to begin with, which is animation. So in addition to like what we're going to be doing for the animation class here, the figure drawing classes that I have are going to be steered towards like, oh, this is prep for what you're going to be doing in animation, and in fact, like, you can plan out some scenes using the figure posing that we're doing. But anyway, yeah, free software, blah blah blah. So let's get into a little bit of what I want you guys doing this week. Let's save this. Stick demo. So what I want you doing this week, well, first off, if you want to, if you have a specific thing in mind you want to try animating, just go for it, and that can be what you're going to do this week. But what I want you doing this week is not really being concerned about making something good or bad. Feel free to do your own research and stuff on your own if you want, into like exercises you can do too. But I will be giving you specific exercises next week. This week, what I mainly want you doing is, at a minimum, I want you animating something like this guy right here. I just want you animating like Stickman. You can do whatever you want with them. But just try playing with him. Just try like making random poses for him to go into, and seeing what happens when you play the timeline. I want people to like play with what they're doing and just have fun. You can try making something more elaborate or thought out, like if you know a thing or two about animation already. Or if you want to do something that's not a stickman at all, and you just want to do some kind of animation exercise that exercises something that you want to work on, feel free to do that. But this is a starting point for everyone. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some stuff you can do to kind of loosen up for that. Like, I'm just making this up on the spot right here. I started with the stickman right here, and I'm doing this little sequence with him kind of moving across the page in some really kind of jerky fashion. So I'll talk a little bit about what I have in mind with this guy, and why I'm making the drawings that I am drawing. So what we got here, these can be considered poses, but this can also be considered a storyboard for animation. And storyboard is what you do to work out the beats of a story before you start planning for the animation. These days, a lot of storyboard artists, especially in TV animation, their storyboards tend to look more like actual animation. So I'm just going to treat this just like a piece of animation. So first off, I have a starting pose, and then I have an end pose that I've kind of worked towards. What I'm decided I'm going to do is I'm going to have him like get kind of like jerked at like the hip or like about the body, as if like some kind of unnatural force is kind of like whoop, is like hitting his body, making him kind of fall over this way. He catch himself with his palms on the ground, then stand up again, and then kind of like lean forward like woo. So what I've got here is a series of what you would call key poses. In fact, like you could even break this down further. You can say that like these are just my only key poses. Like how he got from there to there is what I could have started with. But then the breakdowns, what I decided what happens to him in between those points is the next phase of what I'm doing. So it goes keys. Let me color code these actually here. So your hierarchy is keys, breakdowns, and in-betweens. Your keys should be the strongest poses. The strongest poses, usually the story poses. Your breakdowns are what happens between the keys story poses. And in-betweens are smoothing the action. So this is a general guideline of what your hierarchy of your poses are. Of course, like this is just a way to like help you plan stuff, and you don't have to strictly stick to this because sometimes like a key can also be an in between, or it can also be a breakdown, or like there might be a pose that isn't quite as defined, that you're not quite hitting as much, that that might be like somewhere on the border between between being categorized as these, and also like this is for pose to pose animation, which means you're creating your poses and then kind of filling in the gaps. If you're doing straight ahead, then you don't really care about that stuff as much. Like you can also do this kind of stuff. Straight ahead. It's where you don't even make like a plan like this. You just like kind of intuitively push through the animation. And you can also hybrid these in that, like, parts of your pose-to-pose animation are handled straight ahead. Parts of your straight ahead animation are handled pose to pose, and vice versa. It all comes down to like however you feel would be the best way to handle a shot, and whatever gets you the results you want. So in a way, I actually started this. I started this animation by basically doing a straight ahead of the story poses almost. Because I went from pose to pose to pose. But I do have keys and I do have breakdowns now. So I'm gonna say that this is a key pose actually. I'm gonna say that all these are key poses because that gives me a little more leeway to like define what happens in what I should really be defining as breakdowns. So the default color for harmony for onion skinning is red, so I'm going to change it to orange for my breakdowns instead of using like the color coding that I used at the beginning here. But yeah, so what I'm doing here is with this little tool right here is this is a very important tool for animating called onion skinning. The equivalent of that from traditional animation is where you have those light tables where animators can see the individual frames transparently through a light box. Transparency by overlaying the cells on an animator's light box. Now the thing about this is like you don't want to over rely on this. You want to use this to kind of like gauge yourself so you're not too off of where the arcs are or wherever in what you're planning, and so that stuff doesn't jitter that much. But when you're kind of like getting like the broad motion in, what you want to do is you want to do this thing called rolling and flipping. The traditional version of that is where you turn off the light box, you pick up the papers, and you flip them like a flip book. The equivalent of that is where you just like you hit the buttons to scale back and forth between your animation to see how it's looking and then kind of like visualize where the animation would happen. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to kind of like plot in let's sort of plot in like in the generally the right spot where my poses are and what I have in mind. So my first breakdown is I'm doing a kind of like a weird little cartoon action of like making his like torso kind of bow that way. So it's like stretching out like that. Now I'm going to kind of like, let's see here. So after I get it kind of generally plotted in place a little bit, I'm going to start rolling and flipping. Because then I can kind of sense the motion as if I'm like going through a flip book, basically. And I can start making decisions based on that, like. So this is a way to figure out like if the motion feels good without getting too bogged down and like trying to copy and trace over the last pose or whatever. Like you can fine tune that stuff later and turn on the light box, then you handle that stuff. But like to get you want to get your stuff like generally kind of in place at first to begin with, and then you want to turn off the light box or turn off the onion skinning, and then do something like this. Like, let's see, maybe something more like. I'm actually going to push this some more. Sometimes that'll happen where like you have some key poses and the energy in them isn't as strong as it was for your for how you for how you pushed it in the breakdowns and in-betweens. I'm going to make another pose here. Oh. Did it just crash? Did Harmony just crash on me? Son of a... Harmony just crashed on me. Cool. Awesome. So I lost all that, but don't worry. And this is just a stick guy. I'll just do it again. But that's something that I have to remind myself actually, because I haven't used Harmony in a little while, so I have to remember. Oh yeah, Harmony occasionally crashes. I'm gonna have to maybe, I don't know. Let's see here if I can actually set up backups or something. I should do that later though. But I want to set up like automatic saving. So I don't have to worry about that. But anyway, I mean, that's going to happen sometimes when you're animating. Sucks. But anyway. No biggie. We'll just get back to where we were. And maybe even get some better drawings out of it this time. Because I already know what I'm going to do. So what I want to do is I want to have, like, register some surprise on him. His body's mostly in the same spot. Let's get rid of this. Bow out his torso. Maybe bow it out even more than what I might have initially had. Make sure I save. I'm going to be like habitual about saving it now. I normally am, but I just like got caught up in the lecture, so. Alright, so something like this. Just gonna roughen it a little bit. Let's get rid of some of this. Save that. And then remember what we were going to do this time. I'm actually going to create a new duplicate drawing. Save. And then I'm going to erase this a bit and push it some more. want to get people in the habit of, like, I am just drawing with stick figures right now, but like you do an equivalent of this when you're roughing out your scene with like even more like elaborate character designs or whatever. Like you want to keep stuff as crude as possible. Like you want to keep it in the ballpark of something reasonable that could be turned into a figure drawing if you're doing figurative characters or whatever. But but generally speaking, when you start a scene, it's going to be like really, really rough and crude. It's not unheard of to even like use like stick figures like these for like a quick thumbnail pass or something, even if you're doing more elaborate anatomical characters. Here, let me close the door. Annoying phone out there. So I'm going to kind of work through this intuitively, just make sure I keep saving as I go so I don't run into that same problem again. So what you're seeing me do right here is what they call in animation a smear and a multiple. I'm smearing the action that's happening right here to create a kind of like a blur effect. And I'm creating multiple versions of the character's stick body, which is also mimics like the blurring effect. Like a smear would be here. Let me show you here. So let's say this head is moving from side to moving across the plane. The smear would be like this. Stretched out his eyes and stuff like that, the kind of blurred smear. Multiple would be something like a bit of blur in there. Smears and multiples often appear one and the same. Like you'll see them used basically at this. They often are like basically like often the same thing or used in the same way, more or less. So you'll see often like multiples inside smears and other things. Making another smear down here to the head down below there. Another thing I'm using right here that I'm using intuitively without really planning for it is a thing called arcs. We see a little bit of that in, let me find it real quick, in this. That's an arc right there. That pathway of motion that'll help you track like stuff moving smoothly instead of jittering around when you're animating it. So I have like an intuitive sense of arcs. So there's like kind of an arc going like right here, about even without me drawing it for this. So I'm not too worried about like this being the best animation ever. So I'm not like getting caught up into the planning of it, but I kind of have like a general feel of how it's arcing a little bit. We can kind of get a little preview of how it's going to look when it's on the right timing a little bit. I'm actually starting to see that I might actually want to push this down a little bit. Something like this. So you often do stuff like this where you roll and flip the whole scene and see how stuff works in conjunction with itself. I'm going to delete this actually, and then see how it looks, and then see what my instinct tells me for where to plot this. Another principle that I'm using is a thing called exaggeration, and that's what's going on here. Like this guy's, he's way stretched out from where he would be, and also his head is stretched out here. There's also a little bit of a smear going on here too. Arguably I could put more of a smear there too as well. This is back leg there. This is body. Need to erase some of that. So, as you might expect, like he's coming, yeah, I'm going to have him come up like much slower. But anyway, now that we got all these frames in, maybe I'm going to start like playing with the timing a little bit. First of all, let's just see how it looks when I play it without any timing. So it's way too fast. So straight off, I'm going to put everything on 2s instead of 1s to see how it looks. I might even slow it down even more. 1s is when everything is like when you have 24 frames a second. There's a new drawing every one of those 24 frames. 2s is when you have one new drawing every 2 frames. 3s is when you have one new drawing every 3 frames, and so on. It slows down the amount of time that a drawing appears on screen. And even when you don't have everything drawn in for your posing, if you get like the drawings kind of working at the timing in the right place, you can kind of start to design the action bit by bit. So this needs to be a lot slower. I know that this one is going to need to like at least like 12 frames at the end here. So now I'm going to start playing with the timing a bit. I'm going to add more to this because I think that like making this like read for a little bit longer would be kind of helpful. I'm going to maybe try to put the other stuff on 4s to see what happens when I do that. So maybe the timing of the action, if it's slowed down, would be funnier, or if I varied the timing of it. But I want you to guys, this week when you're making your little animations, I want you to just kind of play with the timing of the posing and stuff. We'll go into more detail what timing and spacing is in the future, but I want you to kind of like look at what I'm doing here and kind of like just play with whatever you're going to do this week. Play with your food. Here we go. so I think it should hold here a little longer, but these frames here can be shorter. Something like that. I'm gonna make a little smoothing in between here just to see how it looks. That one's going to need a lot more frames. Let's push that out a bit more. I want people like getting in the habit of like playing with their time, playing with the timing of their posing and stuff this week, among other things. So start like playing and getting used to the animation software you're using. Yeah, definitely I'm going to need a pose in here. Let's see how this looks. So it's starting to look a little bit more like he's moving. How complex this should the Sakugabura we study from be? Whatever you want. I'm letting this week be open season. But just play with the tools because we'll be doing specific exercises next week. I'm showing you just like a play with a stick figure exercise right now, just so you can loosen yourselves up. Oops, that's in the wrong spot, isn't it? One thing I'll say about threes, for example, you see a lot of animate that actually animates on threes. We're probably going to, as I want to like kind of, so some of the stuff we're going to be doing with the Richard Williams stuff is, I'm going to be like looking for examples of like, from contemporary animation of the principles that, and exercises that he's applying in classes, for the classes that we're going to be doing. So, oops. Let's check this real quick. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's where I wanted to go. Wait, no, that is not where I wanted to go. This is where I wanted to go. Where is it? The timing of this is kind of funny, so I'm going to try something I just observed while playing with this. Let's see how this looks real quick. I think it's funnier if there's more time spent here. So I'm going to add one more. And then I'm going to, let's see here. Not only am I going to add one more, but I'm also going to create more of a closer in between favoring the previous one here. Now what you're seeing, you're going to be seeing me like the elasticity effect that I'm getting out of this animation is by like favoring, putting my drawings closer to a previous frame than another frame. In this case, I'm like the red drawing is the previous frame, the green drawing is where the drawing is going. So I'm favoring the red drawing slightly here for that in between I've just drawn. So it's starting to look a little funnier. I mean, this is a completely invented scene and stuff, so there's not really any like point to it. This is just like playing with moving a character around. But we're getting something amusing out of a character like reacting to having his body being jerked by like some unknown force, like somebody yanked a hook around his chest. We could even animate like a hook coming in from off stage to yank him by his torso and pull him over to the side. And there's more I can do with that too. Like so. We've been at this for about an hour. I'm gonna go over a little bit more on like using some of the reference stuff we've made in order to make notes. If you want to use like, if you want to like turn kind of the stuff that we're doing into like an animation study, the stuff that we do in the figure drawing classes into animation studies. I'll show you a little bit about how to approach that. But after we get this little stick man to a satisfactory level, we're not too far from being done for the day. Unless I have stuff to critique, these sessions are going to be relatively short because we are all committed to animate throughout the week together. All of us. Myself, I need to not be an animator lazy bones. So whether it's good or bad, that doesn't matter. The point is to just keep animating, keep trying stuff, because you get good by not being afraid to mess up. And we're going to be trying to mess up a little bit every day. So that's my main homework for this week. I want you guys animating at least a little bit every day. I don't care what, as long as you're doing something. Particularly if you're doing like something that you want to get some value out of, go for it. But just try playing with stuff. Like, get used to the software. You don't have to like go into the stuff with any particular plan. But I will touch on how to plan out like scene thumbnails if you have an idea, or if you're doing like a study from like live action footage, or from like some figure drawing poses, or from like our figure pose classes. So I think this would be funnier if like I scooted this over to the side. So what I'm going to do that, instead of drawing it, I'm going to repeg it. So I'm going to create a peg for my animation, and I'm going to put it here. This is a harmony thing, so let's see. I'm going to set up put that there, up there. So that peg is going to stay the same, but then then over here it's going to move. Okay. I just think it'd be funnier if this thing was like really a heavy move. It's going outside of the visibility box here, but that's okay. I'll just like adjust it when I can. I think it's a little bit too severe, so I'm going to knock this back that way a bit. And maybe this guy can go up a bit here. And this guy can go, whoops. Let's see how this looks. So let's see, I'll turn this off. Move this guy down here, shrink it a little bit so I can get full visibility on the stage area. Save new version. Let's export this as a GIF. So I'll throw this one up in the Discord chat real quick. Yeah, I'm going to finish this guy off to a satisfactory level before we get done today, but yeah, it's looking pretty neat in the GIF form. There's a little bit of stuff I might want to smooth out a little bit. I'm thinking about here-ish needs an in-between. So let's scoot this over. So I'm thinking this could actually go out even more, like that. There could be even like an in-between here. So that's a really abrupt change there. So I'm going to have one foot extend out like that, because it's going to be sticking a landing. Looking a little too smooth there at the end there. Let's see how I can address that. I think I'll address that by changing the timing of these drawings. Oops, what's going on here? No, that's fine. Yeah, it's looking a little more promising. Sometimes you just like play with the timing a little bits and pieces until you get something that kind of feels good. So I kind of like where this is going a little bit. But I'm pretty happy at this stage with that overall motion right there. So now I'm going to work on the rest of this. So first off, we need a transition pose between that and this. So I'm going to say it should be something like that. Just kind of like awkwardly coming up a bit. And even though this is a stick figure guy, I'm using a little bit of my figure drawing knowledge on an intuitive understanding of the human figure to kind of think about the posing a bit. Kind of working my way through it intuitively a bit. Good time to turn off the light table though. The onion skinning. This pose wasn't particularly well worked out. So I'm actually going to have him like kind of nod a bit, I think, as he's coming up. Like I really want to smooth out this coming up because it's supposed to be pretty slow action, so. So I need more frames to kind of cushion it a bit. Alright, before we go any further, just make sure I save a backup of it. So it sucked to lose all this, like this vibing sketching while they're right in the middle of it. It's one of the other advantages of working rough. If you lose anything, you can usually recreate it. So I think I'm going to adjust the timing of this to see what's going to happen with making it like much more of a slow effect of coming up. It doesn't need to be that much of a pause between these two right here. Alright, let's see how it looks in its current state. So it kind of dies here. Which means I probably need like some more cushioning here. Maybe even more than what I have. So I'm not being terribly talkative right now because I want to see if I can get this working. In the time we have left before touching on thumbnailing for planning out your scenes. So I do like the slight bounce that happens there, but it kind of needs some cushioning on the end of it. I put a little bounce in there where his head goes down a bit, but it definitely needs some more cushioning. Here-ish. Okay, let's see what's happening here. I think it needs more slowing. So it's starting to look a little better. Kind of feel like I want to do something else with this pose though. Here. You go through and push the pose. pushing his hips over to the side a bit. Now I'm working on the arm a bit. I think I can speed up how quickly it comes up with just a tad. Let's try this. Yeah, that's a little better. Yeah, I kind of like it. I kind of like how that's working now. So it does look like he's like it's like a crude stick figure test and stuff, but it does look a little bit like he's shifting his weight now when he comes up and kind of adjusting. I'm not too concerned with this end part here, so I'm actually going to take off this end part where he clutches his chest and just make the end point where he's like kind of looking up in that like bewildered zombie-like pose. Maybe even have him blink. Let's try that actually. So a good way to do a basic blink. Start with your eyes open. Next frame, eyes closed, like closed part way like this. Next frame, duplicate. I'm doing a fast blink. Next frame, eyes completely closed. I'm going to hold that on 2 frames. Duplicate drawing. Actually, and I'm going to use the previous frame that I'd just drawn of him with his eyes open. There we go. But I'm actually going to add a little something extra in here. I'm going to make a slight overshoot on his eyes. Make his eyes bug a little bit when they open up again. Favoring the left eye a bit. But they're both slightly wider. I'm going to actually have that hold for about 2 frames. skin again. So I'm just adding a little something extra to this. Just kind of make it a funny little eye pop move, basically. Let's actually do this with him. Oops. I'm going to start him with his eyes kind of already not that not that wide open to begin with. I think we can really push those eyeballs too when he bugs. So do that. There we go, it's starting to slowly take shape, this little stick figure guy. So I'm gonna maybe leave this guy here. There's some more stuff, like in terms of getting this to satisfaction, I'm pretty close. But I'm not too worried about it, because like the stuff that I do want to change, I mean this is a crude stick figure test, so it doesn't matter where I leave it, as long as it's like something to satisfaction for me. But yeah, I posted the GIF of this in chat for you to take a look at. And so this week I want you doing stuff like this, like where you're just like unself-consciously trying to animate stuff. Doesn't matter how crude it is. In fact, I want rough stuff. Like really, really super rough stuff. But anyway, I'm going to open up another file now of this thing. Hopefully it's the right version. I think it is. Yeah, because I haven't added anything to it yet. So it's the version C. Okay. So for this one, the starting point I had was this study that I did as a demo of somebody else's thing from last week during our figure drawing class. Let me show you what I actually did in the Clip Studio file here. I'll bring it up real quick. Alright. So, what I started with was this drawing back here. Throw this in all in a folder so I can turn it off by opacity. I started with this right here. I did a little bit of a draw over, kind of seeing how to push the pose and stuff a bit. And then I tried to kind of invent a pose. I sort of like figured out kind of like a rough idea of like some kind of fake perspective and this kind of warped sort of scene here for a starting pose, contrasting the other one. I made note of like where the feet would go right here, and I created these little kind of arcs for where I think the pathway that the hand and the body would take and the overall path of the action would take. And I made little notes about where I think in between should be placed. Like there's one here, for example. I made notes like there should be a 12 frame hold on the post to begin with, maybe some cushioning at the beginning, and 2 to 3 to 6 frames or something in between there. There's a collision. No, there's a cushion that happens here, cushion that happens here, and then like eventually there's going to be contact. I didn't design the stuff after that. Like that stuff came later when I did the actual animation, which is this thing. This little, and it turned out into a fun little scene of yeeting this guy off the screen. And some of what I did here is, you see I started with the initial pose. Let's see. Get in here so I can show the actual frames. I added like a kind of an anticipation pose, a couple of anticipation poses that sort of cushion, like the character's anticipating the action. We'll get more into anticipations in the future sessions because that's a principle of animation. Here's a smeared in between right there. Another kind of smeary in between. Some more smears happening here for the action. You notice his hand is kind of following the path arc of the that I'd originally planned. And I actually overshoot the body here to make him like kind of lean into the force and deliver the blow there. See? And then I overshoot it, and then he settles back, just one frame. I could actually have him settle more after this a bit, maybe even have him straighten out his back or something. But I wanted to like play with the dude back here who's getting yeeted off the screen before getting back into that. So when you do like live action studies or studies of drawings or things like that, like you want to plan out some scene thumbnails. You can do like a kind of a draw over thing, like what I did. For example, they gave me a guide to work with that I actually physically used as my template to do this kind of like rough pose test, basically using my thumbnail drawing. But you can also do like another technique, which is like a kind of a side-by-side thumbnail drawing, which is like you draw the poses like somewhat the same size, like of your character. You keep them really loose and crude and stuff. Like so, this is the character that's leaning back here, and then he crouches down here. And what you can do with these is like instead of like rolling and flipping your drawing, what you do is you shift your eye back and forth between the different poses, and you can kind of create a flipbook effect on the page. And it doesn't have to be accurate or anything like that. This is kind of like working with your first initial pass at kind of like working out an idea or something. So this is a guy who's like leaning back, he crouches down, he jumps up. Touches down with one heel first, back down to where he started. Stretch out his. I had decided to make his body stretch out there. Stretch it out more here, maybe a bit. And because I didn't really know where I was starting with this, I'm going to redo this pose. Make it look more like he's kind of bracing to jump. You see, even at this stage, if you shift your eye back and forth between the poses, you can kind of read emotion out of it. And you can use stuff like this to kind of plot out your scenes and think of things. You can make little notes like hold 4 frames, for example. You can do favor down, stretch. And these are just thumbnails. Like, these are like your personal guide and suggestion for what you're going to do for your animation. In this case, I actually made like a plan for the actual animation that I could use as a draw over. Sometimes it's a good idea to shoot your thumbnails to see how they look too, and then you can use them as a kind of a starting point to play with and make better drawings out of them and stuff. But yeah, start like playing with this like before you go into a shot too this week. And you can also like try animating your thumbnails. There's nothing wrong with that. Sky's the limit this week. Like, I want you to just play with stuff and see what you can give me. Just mess with things. Check out Sakuga Burrow if you want ideas. Check out the Animator Survival Kit and check out some of the early exercises and so on. But that's your homework this week. Your homework this week is animate, so this is week 0 of our new animation workshop series. Week 1 will be officially starting next week, so it's okay if you don't have homework for next week. But for those of you getting a head start on this, I want you to animate a little every day. Optional weekend break days. So I'm going to say that even if you have optional weekend break days, maybe try a little animate a little on the weekend, but try to get most of your stuff done throughout the week, so that like you're not bunching it up for the weekend and you cram it for like my Monday class. If you are gonna save and working on the animation for my class, I would mainly work on it on Saturday, because that gives you more breathing room if there's stuff you want to change at the last minute on Sunday, and also gives you a breathing day on Sunday. To have at least one shot for me to critique next week. Can be anything you like, but trying a stick man or something simple and fun would be best. So I don't care what you animate next week, if you're like advanced or new or whatever. You can show me any kind of shot you want to show me next week. And it can even be potentially something that you've done previously that you didn't do for homework through this week. But I want you to try to animate a little bit every day over this week. Just get a little something, get something moving every day. Just get used to using animation software, get used to using the timeline, get used to turning on and off the onion skinning and seeing what happens, and getting used to playing with timeline and so on. Get used to playing with the stuff. and having fun animating and not really caring if it's good or bad. 3, get a copy of the Animator's survival kit and start reading. So I will be showing stuff from the Animator Survival Kit, but I really need people to have. I don't care how you acquire them, by whatever means you can acquire it. But get a hold of a copy of the Animator Survival Kit. I do maybe having more than one copy. If you get the iBooks version that includes animated versions of the Animator Survival Kit and a physical copy, that'd be great. But however you get a hold of the Animator Survival Kit, get a hold of the Animator Survival Kit and have it for next week, and start reading it a bit. Yeah, that's your homework this week. And I want you to, four. Try thumbnailing and planning before animating an idea. Can use photo pose reference or similar as a starting point. So there you go, folks. That's week 0 for this class. That's your homework. I'd love you to have the homework ready to go next week. Yeah, the class will be available to watch later. You can watch it on my YouTube. If you want to find what my YouTube is, there's a link down below in the Twitch page. But as for tonight, we're pretty done. I will congratulate you guys for a job well done sitting through this to the end. Next week, I want to have shots from you guys to critique. Just animate whatever. I don't care how advanced or how new you are. I just want you to loosen up and have fun with the act of animating before you get too bogged down with the rules. Because I want you to have fun playing with animation. Yeah, bit by bit, piece by piece, we'll be taking off chunks of the Animator Survival Kit and we'll be applying it to modern animation techniques like the stuff you see in those cool flashy Sakuga shows and so on. I'll be combining conjunctively what Richard Williams is talking about with stuff by other with animation productions that apply those ideas or use those ideas in very interesting ways. Because it's easy when doing the Animator Survival Kit stuff to get kind of way too crude at times, or way too simplistic. It's a good idea to look at some stuff that has a lot of pizzazz to it, to get inspired and see what kind of cool shit you can do when you really play with these principles and these exercises as you master them. And I'm going to be doing them too, because I'm running this class because I want to do a deep dive into Richard Williams' exercises and stuff. So remember that, folks. That's what's going to be next week. We're going to be learning from the Animator Survival Kit. So without further ado, I think you've all earned this. we're going to put on the congratulations for you guys for sitting through a whole class. Oh, before I finish, what was it? Yeah. Wednesday and Friday are going to be my figure drawing for animators classes, and they're going to be continuing and building on the stuff we did previously. We will also be doing more figure pose studies that let us kind of like design shots that can be used for the Monday class. I will be in the future doing what I just did today a lot more, which is like taking bits and pieces of the research we did on the Wednesday and Friday classes, and using it for animating, stuff on the Monday class. So definitely attend the Wednesday and Friday classes, and you can get some like basically like some planning ideas for what you can do for the Monday class. So without further ado, congratulations.
Congratulations! Congratulations! Congratulations!
Congratulations!
Congratulations!
Congratulations! Congratulations! Congratulations! Congratulations!
Congratulations!
Congratulations!
Congratulations!